Aloha everybody, this is Cole checking in for VSI's Get Your Learn On. Super excited to share this video and some of my knowledge with you guys. Before we start, I'm going to tell you about myself. I'll do a quick little introduction. My name is Cole. I've been with the Vermilion Sea Institute for 3+ seasons now. So I'm a program leader with our Stars to Sea whale shark program. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do, but when I'm not in Mexico, I'm out here in Maui. I'm a naturalist, and I'm going to teach you all about, drum roll please, the humpback whale. That was really up there. So today's lesson is Humpback Whales 101. So I'm going to be teaching you everything from their rostrum or their nose all the way down to their fluke or their tail. So what you'll need today, really easy, a pen and a paper. That's it. So we're going to be drawing out the different parts of a humpback whale. So we'll do humpback whale anatomy, and I'll teach you guys more about humpback whales than you ever thought you could possibly know. It is embarrassing how much I know about humpback whales. So sit back, relax, enjoy, buckle in, strap up. Let's do this thing. Alright you guys, so while we're grabbing our supplies and getting settled in, I'm going to go over some basics before we start to draw out the anatomy of a whale. So humpback whales are what we call a cosmopolitan species. That means they're found in every ocean. But today, specifically, we're going to talk about the North Pacific population, which we get here out in Maui, as well as in Baja. So these guys spend their whole summers up north feeding in the feeding grounds. So Alaska, Russia, British Columbia, they just sit up there and they can eat up to 2,000 pounds of food a day. And they're just getting ready for their migration south. And so every winter, these whales make a 2,000 to 3,000 mile migration down here to Maui, Baja, or even down to the southern islands of Japan. And they are here to do one of three things. Either have a baby, be a baby, or make a baby. So this is the breeding grounds. They're here to mate, give birth, or be born. So some really cool behaviors associated with those three things that we're really lucky to see in the breeding grounds. But I want to tell you specifically about Baja and here in the Au Channel in Maui. So Baja, we all know, is that little pinky. I'm going to use my hand as best as I can. This is Mexico, apparently. So this pinky is Baja, and in between here is the Sea of Cortez. Baja is located on the San Andreas Fault. It's actually opening up, and it pumps tons of nutrients into that water. That's why we get such a diverse and unique ecosystem in Baja. Lots of nutrients are being pumped into the water. But out here in Maui, it works a little bit differently. Although both bodies of water are warm, there are some big differences. So geologically, Maui, the Au Channel, the National Humpback Marine Sanctuary that's behind me, has some really cool features. So behind me, you guys can see the island of Lanai. Over here, we've got, let's figure this out, the island of Koho'olawe. Here's the whole channel we're looking at. Back over here, we've got the island of Molokai. And then all the way behind me, which I'm standing on, we're on Maui. So these four islands make up something called Maui Nui. It means Big Maui. So essentially, this is one giant volcano that's all connected. Now, if I was here thousands of years ago, before the last major ice age, I'd be able to walk to the island of Lanai. There would be no water in between us. And so, over the years, after the last major ice age, sea levels rose and they filled this basin. So all this water here, the National Humpback Marine Sanctuary here in Hawaii, is essentially in the middle of a giant volcano. So we get some cool circumstances that are perfect for our humpback whales. So we have very shallow water here. So as sea levels rose, they filled this basin. At its deepest, it is only going to be about a few hundred feet. That's it. Now that sounds a lot for us. That's very deep for us. But for a humpback whale that's almost 50 feet long, a couple hundred feet is essentially a swimming pool. So it's very shallow water for our humpbacks. And if you're a humpback whale and you're about to have a baby and you're going to try and teach it to swim, it's probably not a good idea to throw it into the deep end. So this is the shallow end of the pool, perfect for our humpbacks in the breeding grounds. Not only is it shallow, but it's also warm. Same thing with Mexico. So these warm waters are perfect for humpback whales. When they're up in Alaska, they can have up to 20 plus inches of blubber on them that keeps them nice and warm and insulated in those cold waters. But down here When the babies are born, they don't have that thick layer of blubber like mom or dad does, so they need warm water to survive. So we've got shallow water, perfect to learn how to swim, warm water, so they don't freeze, and we also have clear water. Now, the reason clear water is so good is because these humpback whales have great eyesight below the surface. So just like you want to keep an eye on your toddler as it's running around, our humpback whale friends want to do the same thing with their babies. So they keep a close eye on their babies out here in the out-out channel. So that clear water lets them keep a close eye and keep that baby close. Now, our humpback whale babies are never going to be more than about a body length or 50 feet away from its mother. So having clear water lets its mom keep it close and keep it safe and protected. So shallow water, warm water, clear water, and we also have safe water. So out here, this is essentially the desert. We're 2,000 miles away from anything, and due to the shallowness and the ocean currents, there's really no nutrients out here. So the coral reefs that we see are little oases in this desert of an ocean behind me. And if there's no nutrients, that means no predators. So our main predator for the humpback whale is killer whales, orca. And there's just none out here. So that's why these whales take that huge migration, almost 3,000 miles, 2 months, to come down here because it's warm, it's shallow, it's clear, and it's safe. So behind me, essentially, we have the perfect whale kindergarten. And that's what we're looking at. So with that, we're going to get ready to draw. So now that I've told you a little bit about the body of water, their migration, and some basics, I want to tell you all about the features of a humpback whale and how they're so well adapted to make that migration as well as survive out here. So get ready to draw. We're going to go ahead and start our whale anatomy lesson. So have your pen and your paper ready. We're going to start drawing our humpback whale and learn a lot about it. Now we also get green sea turtles in Baja as well as Maui. I am not a turtle expert, so I don't know what to say about it. We're just going to have them in the background and you guys can enjoy. Maybe they'll move or do something. They can hold their breath for 5 hours, I do know that. But we're going to start off with the back. So to start today, I want you guys to try and draw a whale tail. It looks like this, pretty easy. So today, don't worry about your drawing skills. It doesn't matter, this is just for fun. So you can label each part, and I'll kind of talk about it as we're going through. So we're going to start with the whale tail. All right, so this back tail is called a fluke, F-L-U-K-E, and it's got some really interesting properties to it. So this whale is essentially one giant torpedo, with its pectoral fins, or these side guys, being the airplane wing. So this is what steers. These are the rudders. And the back tail is the propeller. So this guy is what moves the whale back and forth. So its tail is going to move up and down like this, pushing him through the water. And what's really cool about this back tail is it's actually a fingerprint. So just like our whale sharks in Baja have the little spot patterns that we can use to identify individuals, we can use tails to identify individu-whales. See what I did there? So the back tails are unique to every whale. Just like no two humans have the same fingerprints, no two whales have the same tails. So the shape and the color pattern on the back of every humpback tail is how we keep track of these guys. So there's actually no need for tags. They're expensive, invasive, and really only good for short-term studies, and they're also easily knocked off. So all you need to figure out who's who in the whale community is a picture of this back tail. You take a good picture and you upload it into the database, just like we have a database for wild book. There's also a database for whale tails, and you can get a ton of information from the back tail. We can figure out who the whale is, where we've seen them, the last time we saw them, where they were, how long they were there, how long it takes them to get to where they're going. And one of the coolest things about these tails is we actually found out humpback whales can switch breeding grounds. So we found a whale here out in Maui, and just about 6 weeks later we found that same whale down in Mexico. So he wasn't having any luck out here in the breeding grounds in Maui. He heard tequila makes his job a little bit easier, so he headed down to Mexico, and we actually found that same whale there. So some really cool information we can get from these whale tails. Baby whales, although they do have tails, it takes about 1 year for that shape and that color pattern to be recognizable. A humpback whale comes up and then dives down. We want to get that picture, and that's how we figure out who's who, that back picture. And whales are positively buoyant, which means they need to arch or hump their backs in order to go down on their deeper dives. So that's where humpbacks actually get their names, because they hump or arch their backs to go down on a deeper dive. So back tail, this is the propeller, this is what moves them forward. And next up, so you guys can just kind of draw a big kind of tube or lobe, or however you want to draw the body of a whale. You can use this as a reference, however you want to do it. But this body, the next part up, this is called the peduncle. P-E-D-U-N-C-L-E. Spelling's hard. So the peduncle, fun word to say. Shake your peduncle. But the peduncle is actually one of the strongest muscle complexes in the entire animal kingdom. People think when they go up for those breaches, look, here's one. So majestic. When they go up for those breaches, people think that they're diving from all the way down at the bottom of the ocean floor and coming all the way up. But this muscle is so strong, it only takes about 2 or 3 flaps of the tail to propel a 90,000-pound animal out of the water. So really strong muscle. Worst joke of the day, do you know how they get this muscle so strong? They use blow flex. Get it? Blow. So we've got our fluke. This is the propeller, and it's also their fingerprint. We have the peduncle, one of the strongest muscles in the animal kingdom, and this is what they use to bash off killer whales or to fight off other whales while they're trying to bait, as well as propel them through the water, this big muscle complex. And then up top, we've got a little fin right here. We call this the dorsal fin, D-O-R-S-A-L, so you can label fluke, peduncle, dorsal. So this is the dorsal fin. So just like people think of shark fins, our whale sharks have dorsal fins as well. Theirs is just a little smaller. And this also serves as a fingerprint. So just like the whale is, or the tail is unique to every individual whale, same thing with this dorsal fin. And just like our whale sharks have spots to recognize them, we use the dorsal fin here and the fluke. Killer whales, you can use the white patch behind them, it's called a saddle patch, as well as their dorsal fin. Manta rays, you can use the spot patterns on their bellies. So although it looks like a whale or a manta ray or a whale shark, once you start to figure out these little differences, you can start to pick apart who's who, which is really cool. Every animal in the ocean has its own kind of fingerprint, and that's how we tell them apart. So we've got fluke, peduncle, dorsal fin. Next up, we've got the main part of the whale, but we're going to add our pectoral fins. So just like we have pectoral muscles, they've got pectoral fins. And these are actually the largest appendages in the animal kingdom. So this is a 15-foot arm. So if you want, you put a little 15-foot scale marker next to your pectoral fin. And it's actually how they got their scientific name, Megaptera novanglia. It means big-winged New Englander. These are their big wings, essentially. And they were first documented off the East Coast. They were, like I was saying, they're cosmopolitan species, so they can be found in every ocean. The East Coast is where they got their scientific name. And they use these flippers essentially like rudders. And even though whales look big and bulky and fat and not coordinated, they're actually super, super, super agile underwater. They use these pectoral fins with very precise movements to get through the water. They can actually tuck their babies underneath. They can peck slap, so sometimes out in the water you'll see a big fin, people out, and it's just slapping the water like this. People say they're waving at them. That's just what hippies say. It's not true. What they're actually doing is using that 15-foot-long, 2,000-pound flipper to smack the water and create a sound that echoes out in the ocean. Sound actually travels 5 times faster underwater than it does above the surface, so they can communicate using those sounds. So what they're saying we don't know. Sometimes it's a flirtatious behavior in the breeding grounds, sometimes it's a warning, hey, get away, and sometimes we'll notice the moms doing it with the babies to call them over if they get too far away. Kind of, hey, get over here. So pectoral fin. Cool thing about the pectoral fin, you'll see all these leading edges, little bumps on them. We've actually designed wind turbines based off of these because it makes them super aerodynamic in the water. It's crazy. So a lot of wind turbines are now being designed based off these pectoral fins of our humpback whales. And speaking of hydrodynamics, a whale's skin actually takes a piece of water, creates a thin film of water around it. Whale skin, it's its own ecosystem, it's so cool. But that thin layer of water that forms around the skin actually makes it move super smooth as it's going through the ocean. So another thing that makes them very well adapted to life underwater. Whale evolution is absolutely mind-blowing. It's crazy. It's really cool. These guys adapted 50 million years ago. They're mammals, so they have to breathe air. That'll be our next little spot is the blowhole. So you guys can draw. Does that look like one or two blowholes to you? You tell me. 2 blowholes. Looks eerily similar to our nostrils. So the nostrils, or blowhole, is the same as ours, except for it's not connected to their mouths. This is only connected to their lungs. And speaking of lungs, humpback whales' lungs are about the size of human sleeping bags. So you could each cuddle up and fit in each side of one of those big lungs. They're very, very, very well adapted to life underwater. So I was telling you guys that the turtles behind us can hold their breath for about 5 hours. These guys not so much, but still a long time. They can hold their breath to close to an hour. And they've got some adaptations that make them really well adapted to doing that. So they've got lungs the size of sleeping bags. They've got more hemoglobin in their blood, which allows them to hold more oxygen. They also have something called myoglobin. It's an oxygen-binding protein. We have it, they just use it better. So myoglobin essentially lets them use their muscles like scuba tanks. So that's how they're able to hold their breath so long. Their big lungs actually have tons of folds and crevices in them so that when they expand, there's tons of surface area for oxygen to exchange. So they can get more air out, they get more oxygen in, and then they can hold on to it better. So their muscles actually act like scuba tanks, which is really cool. Let's see what else we want to do. So we've got fluke, peduncle, pectoral fin. We've got our blowhole, which is actually 2 holes. When they blow, it comes out at close to 200 miles per hour. So people think they're spouting water out. The cartoons lied to you. Finding Nemo lied to you. They're not shooting water out of their blowholes. There's actually no water that gets in here. It's just going in and out of their lungs. Their lungs are just so massive and come out at so much pressure. When they reach the surface, any little water that's sitting on top is vaporized and comes out. So when you see a whale blow and yell, "Dar, she blows!" that's actually just water being vaporized because it's coming out so quick under so much pressure. And that's how we find whales. People always ask on whale watches, how do you find the whales? There's no app. There's no such thing as a fish finder. It doesn't work that way. All we're doing is looking for the spout or the blow or the exhalation of the whales. It's 15 feet high. So 15, you probably realize, is the magic number when it comes to humpback whales. And so when I ask you a question about humpback whales, trivia night, just say 15. You'll probably be right. This back tail is 15 feet across. Their pectoral fin, 15 feet long. Their spout out of their blowhole shoots up on average about 15 feet. And when they're born, they're about 15 feet long. So speaking of size, we'll talk about size. So maybe we'll make a scale. So you can take from the tail all the way to your front, and you can record out about 45 feet. So these guys, on average, fully grown, are about 45 feet. Females a few feet longer than the males. And they weigh 90,000 pounds, 45 tons. That is literally a ton per foot of whale. Massive, massive animal. And like I was saying, that peduncle muscle is so strong, you can take 90,000 pounds and get it out of the water in just a few slaps of the tail. So really incredible creatures, tons of cool adaptations already. So let's see what else we want to talk about today. Blowhole, lungs, breath capacity. So you guys, I'll give you, actually, let's catch up for a second. So I'll give you a second to kind of label your fluke, label your peduncle, label your pec or pectoral fin, and you can label the blowhole as well. And next to the blowhole, we'll see a little whale's eye. Their eyes are really incredible. Their lenses are designed so that they can flex. They can see almost as good above water as below. So I told you they come out here for the clear water, lets them keep a close eye on their babies. But when they come out of the water, one of my favorite behaviors is called a spy hop. We'll try it. Come on, oh, that's just me. Spy hop, they come out of the water and then they come back down like that. And what they're actually doing is scanning what's going on around them. They can see, they'll flex the lens in their eye and readjust from underwater to above, and they can see what's going on. And a lot of people actually think when they jump up and breach, they turn a certain way, so they're actually getting a visualization of what's going on around them. That's one of the ways we think they kind of figure out where they are. So I mentioned that migration, so since we're on the head, we'll talk about their brains. Their brains have high levels of magnetite, which is a magnetic mineral. People always ask, how do they know how to get from Alaska and Canada down to Mexico and down to here in Maui? We don't know. That's the answer. We really don't know. That's the answer to a lot of questions about humpback whales. They haven't been that well studied. It's only recently we've been learning a lot about them. But they've got high levels of magnetite, so we think there's some sort of magnetic compass in their brain that allows them to kind of find an orientation of where they are. And a recent study actually found out that solar flares increase the odds of a whale beaching. So when we have high solar activity, electromagnetic radiation being blasted out into our atmosphere, it disrupts their magnetic compass, and we see 3 times more whales being beached during a solar flare, or the odds are 3 times more than when we've just got kind of our standard magnetic field. So we think they use magnetism in some form as a compass as they're figuring out their migration route. You could give me a boat with $1 million worth of equipment I could not get from Alaska to here, but these whales do it every single year. They also use sound. So since we're on the head, we'll talk about their vocal cords. They don't have any, but they do produce sounds. Humpback whales sing, which is quite fascinating. It's actually their whale song that got them on, that started their whole conservation effort, put them on the map for conservation. And that whale song actually got them off the endangered species list. It made it onto the Billboard Top 100 charts back in the 70s when we first started really studying these guys. And whale song's really fascinating. It sounds like a bunch of weird noises. Finding Nemo wasn't that far off, or Finding Dory if you've seen it. And the whale talks like this. Bunch of weird noises that they make. They move air in between different sacs in their throat. They don't actually have vocal cords. That sound can travel miles and miles and miles and miles. And what they found out is if you go underwater here in breeding season and you listen, you can hear the whale song. Sounds really weird, but that whale song is a form of communication. We think it's only the males that sing, and they really only do it here in the breeding ground. So why would they be singing? To attract the ladies? That's what scientists thought, but not necessarily the case. So we heard whale song below the surface. It's only sung by the males. It's only in the breeding grounds. It's a safe assumption that it's to attract females, kind of like Enrique Whale Glacius out here. But scientists did the opposite. Instead of listening, they played whale song. So they took whale song, blasted it underwater, and they waited. And guess who showed up? They thought all the ladies, but incorrect, all the dudes. So they were wrong. We really don't know that much about the whale song. We think it may be a way of kind of gathering the boys together. They call it the wingman theory. If a bunch of guys are in the area, a female whale may think, okay, out of all these guys, one of them's got to be good looking enough to mate with. But that whale song made it onto the Billboard Top 100 charts, and it also kickstarted their conservation efforts, and it's also in space. What? It's in space? Yeah, that's right. So that whale song is actually on one of our Voyager missions. It actually just made it outside of our solar system. NASA took a whole bunch of information about the planet and put it on that satellite, or whatever you want to call it, throw it out into deep space. So someday, some extraterrestrial form may come across it, and they may get to hear us, which is kind of wild to think. But whale song, really, really incredible. What they'll do to sing is they'll swim down, they'll go about 50 feet down, they'll take their head, or their rostrum, which we'll talk about in a minute, and they'll point it down 50 feet below the surface, and they start singing. Their song is about 15 minutes long, and it's the most complex song in the animal kingdom. Second most complex song in the animal kingdom, right behind Ice Ice Baby, just kidding, right behind the human song. No other animal has a more complex song other than us after the humpback whale. So they sit down, they start singing 15-minute song. What's crazy about this song is it has repetition, it has themes, it has a chorus, and it changes every year. All the whales sing the same song. It's only the males that sing it, and it changes every year. So how these whales teach each other the song, we have no idea. How it changes, we have no idea. But every year, little bits change. So, really cool stuff about that whale song. If you have questions, let me know. Whale song is really fascinating. But we're going to go on to other pieces of this guy. So we got fluke, peduncle, pectoral fins, blowhole, eye. And next up, we'll draw these little bumps. So draw some bumps on its head. So a little bump up here. These little bumps are called tubercles. Tubercle. I think that's right. Tubercles. And we think that they are sensory organs. So inside of each one of these tubercles is one tiny little hair. So just like a bird has to have feathers in order to be a bird, this is a mammal, and mammals have to have what to be mammals? Hair. So these guys actually have little hairs. They've got tiny little hairs all over. Anybody want to guess what color hair a humpback whale has? All humpback whales are blondes. So there's your most interesting science fact of the day. Every humpback whale is a blonde. They're pigmentless hairs, so they're little white hairs sticking out. They're not crazy enough to be redheads, so little blonde hairs. So tubercles, we think, act like almost like cat's whiskers. Like I was saying, these whales have excellent vision. Their eyes are actually chameleons. They can move them independently, and then on top of that, it creates an almost 360 bubble. They've got really good spatial awareness. The only place they can't see is right in front of them, just due to the positioning of their eyes. So we think these little hairs act like sensory organs. They can sense ocean currents and temperatures and changes and what's going on around them. We think it's probably used for feeding, as they're lunge feeding up in Alaska. And speaking of feeding, when these guys are up in Alaska, they can eat up to 2,000 pounds of food a day. That's a lot of food. That is the equivalent of you guys eating 16 Oreos every minute for one full straight day. That'll get you the same amount of calories that a whale eats in one day. So try it, 16 Oreos every minute for 24 straight hours. Give it a go. But let's see, so when they're up in Alaska, they eat. Their jaw actually unhinges to about 90 degrees. They expand that jaw almost like a snake. And so they'll swim up, open that jaw, grab a bunch of fish. So we'll talk about the rostrum next. So we'll talk about their feeding. So the next thing I want you to label is their head. So you can draw a little arrow to the head and write rostrum. R-O-S-T-R-U-M. Rostrum. It might be an O-M. I don't know. But rostrum just means the whale's head. And we've got its mouth, obviously. You don't need to label mouth. But when it's up in Alaska, it does something really cool called bubble net feeding. And these are really sophisticated animals. Look up the videos on YouTube. They'll blow your mind. But they don't eat big fish. They eat little tiny fish. They can only eat little fish. Even though this mouth is huge, their throat is only about the size of your fist. It's about the size of a grapefruit. So they can't swallow big fish. They have to eat tons of little tiny guys. And they have something called baleen, B-A-L-L-E-E-N, probably, baleen. And they're like little hairs in their mouth. So it's the equivalent of, like, if you eat cereal in the morning, take a big scoop, dump a bunch of cereal in your mouth, go like this, squirt all the milk out, and what's left behind? All your Captain Crunch. Same thing that these whales do. They take big gulps of food, squirt out all the water, and all the little tiny fish get trapped in those hairs or baleen, and then they take their giant 2,000-pound tongue, slide it to the back of their throats, and that's how they eat. Pretty cool. Let's see what else I want to talk about. One of the things people notice the most about humpback whales is barnacles. So you can draw a couple barnacles on them. That's a crustacean, kind of like a crab, and they will actually live on these whales and filter feed and just get a free ride and eat while they hang out on these whales. They can have up to 1,000 pounds of barnacles on them at any point in time. So you can draw a little label, maybe draw some barnacles, so don't get the bumps of barnacles confused with the tubercles. Tubercles are part of their body. Barnacles are a whole separate organism. But that'll lead me to what I want to call we'll talk about breaching in just a second, but a lot of these barnacles, you will see all these grooves on the whale's underside. These are called ventral pleats. You don't need to label this one. This one's a little bit advanced, but this is what allows them to open their mouths and expand and take in all those fish when they're eating, these ventral pleats. So when you see lines underneath, just lets them expand. But we're going to talk about my favorite thing to talk about to end our little whale anatomy tour, which is breaching. That's when a whale jumps out of the water like Free Willy. And I mentioned they use that peduncle muscle to get that 90,000-pound animal out of the water. But why would a whale jump? We have a lot of theories. We don't know for sure. But here's kind of the most accepted science behind it. So we think they jump, one, to knock off these barnacles. It's a 90,000-pound animal. And these barnacles, they get up in Alaska, and they soften up in these warm waters out here in Maui. And a 90,000-pound animal doing a big jump, belly flopping, it's going to dislodge a lot and knock off a lot of these barnacles. So we think that's one reason they jump up, is to knock off these barnacles or any other parasites they have. Another reason we think they jump up is for communication. So that big splash that they make is going to echo out. Like I was saying, sound travels better underwater than above. So a big whale splashing is going to echo out and send a signal to other whales in the area. What it's saying, we don't know. It could say, hey, come over here, I'm ready to mate. Could be flirtatious, could be a warning call, it could be a way of establishing territory. We really don't know. But we think they jump to dislodge parasites, to communicate, make a sound, and tell other whales something. What that something is, we don't know. But they also jump for exercise. The babies, especially out here in the breeding grounds, we see jumping all the time. And we think they're trying to build up those myoglobin stores, build their muscles up, be nice and strong. But it could be a way of showing off to the ladies, hey, look how high I can jump, look how fit I am. Or it just could be a way of exercising for these whales. People think they do it just for fun. They're social animals, they're really smart, they're sentient beings. So some people theorize that they could just jump up for play or for socialization. My personal theory, especially on windy days like this, is they're probably jumping up just to dry off. Imagine being wet your whole life and never feeling dry. And terrible joke. Well, that'll be the worst one and last one of the day. So we think they breach to dislodge parasites, to communicate, to exercise. Could just be for fun, or it could be for a reason we have no idea about. But that is pretty much our whale anatomy. We've got the fluke, which is like their fingerprint. It's how we tell them apart. And it's their propeller, it's what moves them through the water. We've got their peduncle, that's their essentially one giant muscle. And that's what moves them. They've got their pectoral fins, largest appendage in the animal kingdom, 15 feet long. Nobody has a longer appendage. We've got our blowhole, lets them breathe. They've adapted 50 million years. They used to be terrestrial or land animals. After the dinosaurs went extinct, they started to move into the ocean and eventually grew to these giant sizes. And their nose, just like us, moved from their rostrum or their head all the way to the top for obvious reasons. There's transition fossils all in the geologic record. We can see this nostril slowly moving from the front all the way to where it is today, which is really cool. They've got giant lungs. They've got really good eyes, better than you would think for whales underwater. We've got their rostrum or their head. We've got barnacles, tubercles, which we think are used for senses. We've got ventral pleats, which let them expand their mouth and eat lots of food so they can be nice and big. And it helps them on their migration, because when they're down here, our turtle's moving. So when they're down here, they're not eating. There's no food for them here. So they live off of all their blubber reserves. So they need to eat a lot when they're in Alaska. So they'll lose 30,000 pounds by the time they come here and go back to Alaska. But that is essentially Whale Anatomy 101. Take a look at your drawing. Take a second. Make sure you got everything. You can add any little notes that you want, any cool facts. What color hair do whales have? They're all blondes. Take a look at your drawing. It's awesome. Share it with us. We want to see them. If it's not so awesome, maybe don't. I don't know. Share it anyways. So this is Whale Anatomy 101. Sweet. That's it. We'll end there, and I'll talk. We're going to transition over to Lahaina Harbor, and we'll end on a really good note. We'll talk about whale conservation. I hope this hasn't been too overwhelming. I've had a good time. I hope the feeling's mutual. Alright, you guys, we have learned a lot about whales today. I hope you had a good time, but I want to end on an even better note. We are here in Lahaina Harbor, one of the most trafficked whale watching harbors in the whole world. So all these boats that you see behind me all run whale watching tours. So they take people out to see, enjoy, and learn about our humpback whales. But that wasn't always the case. In fact, this port used to be a whaling port. So all these boats hundreds of years ago used to be here to hunt whales. Scientists estimated that before whaling began, there was over 100,000 humpbacks in the North Pacific. And in the 1970s, the population count was down to under 1,000. So they were hunted almost to the brink of extinction. Thankfully, the whale song, like I talked about, kickstarted the conservation efforts. As we've learned about them and seen what amazing creatures they are, we've tried to protect them. So we've had a Marine Mammal Protection Act, and we've established the National Humpback Marine Sanctuary that I've been talking about all day today. And so those things have really helped make those populations bounce back. So they were almost extinct, less than 1,000 whales in the 1970s. And today we're happy to say there are over 30,000 whales off the endangered species list. Yeah! And now people can come from all over and enjoy the whales, along with all the other awesome marine species that are out here. So with that, that's what we'll end it with, a good story. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned a lot. I had fun. Make sure you swipe up, like, subscribe, click this link that's in my hand. There will be a link there, I'm sure. Enjoy, guys. Born to Baja. Go VSI. Have a good day.